I will just show this comment as well. Thank you to everyone for tuning into the Reinvigorated Taxation is Death podcast live from the studio in San Antonio, where I now live. So happy to be here. So Nick Sokoluk has said most Australians don't realize the full extent of the bullshit as mainstream media refuse to show the government and police overreach attempt. This was a huge thing in Australia. It's probably similar. I don't know how similar it is here, actually. I might ask you. So, in Australia, the government funds basically all of our media. We have a state broadcaster, the ABC, which is fully funded by us, the taxpayer, and then all the other big media companies get funded by the government too. The government is their biggest advertiser. In WA, where I'm from, the newspaper there that put out that hit piece against me, they're funded by the state. So this is what we have to deal with in Australia as well, because we don't have the First Amendment, we don't have free speech, and we are heavily propagandized. We are very heavily propagandized about what to think about America. Every time there is a shooting over here, it's front page news. It's all over our news. They never go into details about why it happened. It's always, this is why Australia has the best gun laws in the world, because we don't have what's happening here in America. Can I just get your thought? I don't think I've ever asked you this, and I have to for my own self-gratification. What is your view on the Second Amendment? Okay. How important is that?
Well, first of all...
and then I'll argue with you if you say it's not important.
First of all, let me just ask this, because I hear all these people saying like, oh, it's so much worse. There's, what do they say? They say there's 1,000 or 2,000 mass shootings in the United States every year. So it's some crazy number. And it's like, yeah, but they love showing us all that stuff. So we'd be hearing about, I want to say it's closer to 1,000, whatever the number is, because I think it works out to like 3 a day.
And they changed the definition of mass. It used to be 4.
It's nonsense.
I think it's 4.
If 4 kids like are shooting each other with BB guns. Oh, 2 kids are shooting each other with BB guns. It's considered a mass shooting. But it's like only if the cops are called. But it's like we hear front page news.
Or if the cops shoot 2 people, I think it's called a mass
Yeah. That's probably a majority of them. But it's like if this happens 3 times a day, why don't we have like outrage porn on the news 3 times a day? Why is it that we only actually hear, like there was one a couple days ago at like
Florida.
Campus, right? It's like we only really hear about them once every few months, and I get it. Like it's still a tragedy, right? It should be down to 0. But at the same time, like statistics don't lie, but liars use statistics, right? Like they like, oh, let's alter this number so it looks like a big number, and say like, oh, and like I hear people all the time citing these numbers, but it's like it's total propaganda. And to your point about like the media being controlled by the government, like absolutely, like it's there's a great interview from like I think the interview's from like the 80s or 90s, but it was a guy who was a CIA operative in the 70s who basically says like, this is how Operation Mockingbird worked. This is how we controlled the media. We basically went into all the major news organizations. We made friends, we paid them off, and we told them this is the stuff you're going to publish. And it all works the same way. And I see these reels pop up on social media all the time, right? Where it's like one newscaster, and he's saying like, this holiday season, blah, 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 blah. And he says something, right? And then it shows the next one and the next one. And there's 500 of them, like all local news, it's all, but it's like, why are all these people saying the exact same thing? And it's like government propaganda or not, you have to understand the technical system that's working behind this. They have this press release system where they get their news from this system that propagates all the news. So when you hear on the news, the US government did this, or this is happening in some foreign country and this and that, where are they getting their news from? Like, do they have people in all these countries? Do they have people in Afghanistan right now? Or are they relying on the White House to put out a press release that goes down the channels and it ends up on all these news channels? And so they'll give them the facts. And whether you're on the left side of the news or the right side of the news, the facts always line up because those always came from the White House. Now, whether or not it's pro-liberal or pro conservative, like those are the opinions they're going to pile on top of it, but the facts all come from the same place. And as long as they're coming from the White House and intelligence and blah, 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 because these aren't reporters who are out there talking to the Taliban, right? It's the government, because the Taliban works for the government. Like, that's how they have all this inside information. And that's how they knew bin Laden, took down the towers like within 30 minutes and like all this other stuff, right? Whether or not that's true, that's their propaganda. And that's the story that everybody carries because it comes from the official source, the government, the White House, right? So all these other countries, they have the same types of systems, right? Fox News does not have people all around the globe. I mean, like some of them do. They have people in like different places who are looking at different stuff. But like when you see it on every single channel, don't think that 500 different news channels, especially local news channels, have some guy in the Gaza Strip who's like reporting on exactly what happened. No, they get it all from like one source. And that source is usually manipulated. So I don't know where I'm going with this. Help me out here.
Well, that was the first part of the question. The second part was the Second Amendment. And this is something I'm so excited to finally have here after what's happened in WA. I can't even own my little 22 pistol in Western Australia anymore because of my views, attitudes, and opinions. Yes, that is part of the licensing process in Western Australia now. The cops can look at your views, attitudes, and opinions. If you're standing behind a Gad Swan flag, which I have somewhere in the studio, I can be considered radical, so I can't be trusted to own a gun. That's how bad it's gotten in Australia. So how important is the Second Amendment here? Because you can't defend free speech. You can't stop paying taxes unless you have the means to defend yourself.
Okay. Oh man, there's so many different ways to approach this. And a lot of people talk about self-defense, and they talk about, there are a lot of women who testify like, I carry a gun because like I don't want to get raped. Actual victims, rape victims, who say like, yeah, I carry a gun now because I didn't have one then. It's for personal protection. A lot of people say I have it in case somebody breaks into my house. These are all legitimate reasons.
Not in Australia. None of those are legitimate reasons.
Well, your stuff is more important than somebody else's life. Well, yeah. I mean, somebody who doesn't belong in my house. But then there's the whole defense argument about like, no, it's to defend against tyranny. And like we talked about that congressman in that conversation before. And I hear this from people on the left all the time. I hear what Joe Biden says it, right? I try to use your AR-15 against an F-16, right? And it's like, okay, I get that. But at the same time, like, okay, so yes, my AR-15 would not protect me against a nuke falling on my head. But are you really going to drop a nuke on my neighborhood? So let's say there's like, let's see, I don't know what's the range on a nuke. If you were to drop one where I live now, you'd probably take out like, I don't know, 50,000 people or more, right? And then like with the extra fallout, another 150,000, who knows, right? 150,000, because you don't like me, you're going to drop a nuke on me and take out 150,000 people with me? No, that's not how it works. So like people don't understand. Like you can say these things like, sure, if it's like me versus an F-15 in the middle of the desert, and it's like, yeah, I'm shooting, like, I'm not going to be able to take an F-15 down. But like to consider that like how actual warfare works, it's like if they start going door to door and all of their agents start disappearing, like they're going to realize our guys aren't coming back with all the stuff they're supposed to be stealing. Like they're going to realize like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. The people aren't actually standing for it. And not to say that like that would happen, because I don't even own any guns. Like any gun I ever bought, I lost in a boating accident. But this is like what people believe, and that's all government propaganda. But it is absolutely important because there was a rally that I went to in Virginia, and this was there's a picture of me walking around with this hat, and like there's a couple guys in like full gear with like AR-15s and everything, and there was a Virginia State Police like tank, like one of the MRAPs, right, like the military like armored things. and like they're all metal, and I had these like magnets, right? So I had a big magnet that said taxation is theft, so I slapped it on the side of it, and I went and took a picture next to it while these two guys with AR-15s and camo are like guarding me, and it's like it was a joke. They weren't really guarding me because nobody was after me, but they were like, they were just there because they were just in full gear because they wanted to, and that was the thing. Like everyone, it was a massive Second Amendment protest, and I want to say Virginia does this every year because every year they threaten to take their rights away. But the streets were flooded with probably 10 to 20,000 people, all who had like just guns like coming out of their ass, right? Like everywhere, big guns, small guns, like it was crazy. And it's like we're standing in like, oh, there's all these guns and everything, and it's like no one's getting shot at, not a single shot fired. But the government is afraid of that. Like they're afraid because, like, I mean, think about it. Like you see the protests the governments have, and they're like, oh, there's like 10,000 people on our lawns holding up signs. Like, we don't care. We're going to pass this bill anyway, right? But if they're out there with Molotov cocktails and pitchforks and torches and guns and everything else, it's like, it's a little bit more scary, right? Like that's the thing. The whole point of protest is like, oh man, it was in the video. It was in the intro video that you had. It was somewhere in Europe. I don't know where, but like they took this guy, this like politician that they hated, and they took him as he was coming out of parliament and they threw him into a dumpster. They're like, screw you, man. And it's like here, or probably in Australia, probably a lot of other places, be like, oh, that's a hate crime. You're going to prison forever. And it's like, come on, the guy lived, right? No blood, no foul, right? Yeah. But it's like, no, there's such can I say this word? I want to say pussies, but yes, I just learned that's not a word that means a part of the woman's anatomy. It's actually short for pusillanimous or something. Oh. Which is a word which means shit, what does it mean? It's like very like timid, like how you define somebody who's a pussy, but it's short for pusillanimous or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just an urban legend that's like floating around the internet. But it made a great meme. But it's like, so that's kind of what it's become. And it's like we used to tar and feather people, right? Like we used to really like get out and like, yeah. And it's like, well,
we had Ned Kelly. Ned Kelly is a famous bushranger who went up against the state.
You know who does it great though? The French.
Oh well, they used to.
They still dump all kinds of fertilizer all over Parliament, and like, they like, I've seen them like come up with like a tank with like a hose, and they're just like spraying like shit all over the place.
Oh, I think your mate Ron Helton has given you the definition. Pusillanimous.
Showing a lack of courage or determination. Timid. I said timid.
Yes. Yes.
So is that a real word? Was that has to be?
Yeah, it has to be.
Because he couldn't have found the meme that fast. You can't find
it. We are not all pussies from down under. We've been brave enough to leave.
Works for the government, definitely.
Well, yes.